now. It's recording.
Woo.
All right. You can start whenever you want.
We can? Oh, so we're live right now.
Oh, I can cut.
No, we're live. Juicy Brush. This is happening, everybody.
Oh my God.
We're live in the moment.
Nick, you've swept the ground underneath me.
Yeah, I know. This is like last time with the first.
I wasn't ready
video.
to start.
It's kind of like, okay, just for context, the first video we did as test footage, we were kind of like setting up, and the footage will be on the channel in that first 20-minute snippet, but I didn't know that beginning part was going to be in the scene. So I was like, wait, what? I thought that was going to be cut out. So you know what? We're flipping it around. Now it's pulling the rug under you a little bit.
Yes, you got your revenge.
Yeah. Just to balance out.
Yeah. It's a bit strange to get into podcast mode, but here we are now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
All right.
So we're in.
So I think we're ready to do the name reveal, right?
Name reveal? Okay,
Yes.
Let's do it.
So the name of the podcast is the Juicy Brush Podcast.
Yeah. Juicy Brush.
Yes.
So what is juicy, and how does that relate to brushes?
What is juicy?
What is juicy? Yeah,
Well, I'll tell you something. Sorry, guys. Yeah, the Juicy Brush Podcast is kind of like, for me, as a concept artist, and to all the concept artists listening, you know that we love the word brush. There's a brush for every, I don't know, what's the brush to artist ratio for portfolios? There's like for every 10 artists, one of them calls themselves a brush.
Really? I've never actually heard that.
Yeah, there's like, Craig Mullins with good brush, and then there's someone brush, and then there's brush guy.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. That's the first time
Okay.
Different brush circles, I guess.
Yeah, we just love to brand ourselves with brush. It's just a funny thing. But what's more important is the word juicy.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you're familiar with this very, very, very what's the right word? A man of culture. He's a man of expertise. He has a good sense for what he calls the juice, and this would be Shadi Safadi.
Yeah.
And although I don't know Shadi Safadi personally, his outlook and all the guys from Naughty Dog, including Eitan Zana, and all the other guys, I had the privilege to study with Eitan. They introduced me to the juice, and now I use it in my daily life all the time to describe what I consider like when you go to a nice, let's say it's a pizzeria, and the pizza is just like damn, it just like texture, everything is like 10 on 10. Sometimes the right word is like a word like juice. So
like you can have a good pizza, but it's like that flavor, like that unique flavor they bring to it, that's just like really impressive.
It's just like whatever this experience, it's like a visceral experience of like quality.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So thank you, Shadi, for popularizing the word juice.
Yep. If you're watching this, Shadi, thank you. That was actually, Shadi was also my intro into concept art. He was the first concept artist I watched his videos on YouTube. So
me too.
Also huge impact for me, for my concept art career. So yeah, that's where I learned about the juice.
Yeah. It's brought so many juicy things into my life. Like I'm thankful for whatever this juice thing is. Hopefully we can keep it going, because as time goes on, we need to keep the what do we call tradition?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, it's pretty ingrained. I mean, I use the term even when I teach, so like it's a pretty ingrained, I'd say, like word at this point that a lot of concept art use. So I don't know if, hopefully it never kind of like goes out of style or like phases out, because I think it's a really good way to kind of describe the juice.
You just like that's no word juicy. It's like, wow, that couldn't have said it better. Sometimes it's just the perfect way to describe a picture.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I don't think we're weird to say it. I think it's like a natural thing. But besides that, we'd just like to welcome you to this full version of the podcast. We're going to be going for the full hour, maybe 2 hours, to give you the full experience. So we're just really happy to finally get started.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We went through a little bit of some hurdles, but finally we can film and it's happening. So we're good now.
Yeah. So the topic for today.
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
It's an important one.
It is the bread and butter.
It's definitely a foundation of like, information for sure. It's a very important topic, talking about concept art and kind of illustration as well, and kind of like the difference and kind of how, the difference. We're talking a bit about concept art as well, what that's like. A bunch of topics that kind of relate to that and different, like the difference between different art forms and such. So there's a lot to kind of like unpack and talk about, but yeah, it should be a really good topic, I think, for our first video.
Yeah, I think it'll be great because this podcast, like, what is it? We're concept artists. We want to explore this realm of concept art. We want to see where concept art's going in the future from 2024 and on, and also dive in the past as well. I think this would just be a great episode to describe really what we do.
Yep.
And also inform anyone else who's not sure what concept art is, or maybe you've heard of it. Maybe you're an artist and you want to learn how to draw or paint. This is the podcast for you. This episode will try to cover as much as we can regarding those topics.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way to put it.
So, because, memory, we have some bullet points to pull up, but we'll go through whatever and we'll see what we can talk about.
So what do you want to start with? I guess I want to talk a little bit about concept art and different art forms that exist, whether it's in the entertainment industry, just kind of like a blanket kind of across the board, different kind of art fields. And then how does concept art differ from those? Because it does, right? They all differ from each other. So
yeah, there's it's a funny thing. No one knows what concept art is.
It's very, like, I think it's on the rare end. Like, people know what graphic design is. I think illustration is a more popular term. I've even heard people like talk about storyboarding here and there, but I definitely think concept art as a term is not something people know as much about as maybe some of the other fields, for sure.
It's not like your main, ice creams at the ice cream store. Yeah. It's concept art is like, I don't know, it's like an obscure esoteric ice cream only made in Ethiopia. Like it's really that. No, but really, if you just take anyone outside and you're like, what's concept art? People are like, I don't know. Yeah. I have no idea. So how about we describe, we can get into what concept art is and describe like, what makes a concept artist different than just another artist? Yeah. So maybe, I don't know if you want to start with some points about that.
So concept artists, which is what we both do. I know you have a little bit of experience in some other areas as well, like illustration stuff. Me, not so much, but concept art, at least the way I look at it, I definitely think we have some overlap in this. It's definitely a form of problem solving. So it's not, the main goal is not about painting pretty pictures. It's not about having like the most beautiful paint strokes.
But I love pretty pictures, Nick.
Yeah, I know you do, actually.
People like them.
Yeah, well,
don't take it away from us.
Well, that's why there's illustration, right? Like that's what illustration's for. But in general, concept art is really like, you're there to solve problems. You're there to work with a team. It's like it's a very useful and functional position in the sense of like you're there really to visually problem solve. Like it's not about always having the nicest pictures. Sometimes they're rough napkin sketches. Sometimes they are something you have a little more time to push to make it look a little bit more final. But in general, it's
visual problem solving.
Visual problem solving, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very different thing than I paint really cool pictures.
Yes.
And that's different. What, I don't know about you, when I started out as a student, even before when I was in high school, I love drawing.
Yeah.
And for me, concept art was like a way to honor this like drive to make quote unquote cool pictures. Mm-hmm. And it's, I think from my vantage point now, as someone who's been working for, 8-9 years now, that is what gets you started in the industry. Like you want to make whatever you think a cool picture is or cool visuals are. Let me just see where I'm going with this.
Like you get excited. You want to draw Batman. You want to design all these cool ideas because, when you get to see the finished product of something like a game, like a movie, it's always like, oh my God, like this looks amazing. This is so cool. You know, you think of your favorite games you've ever played when you think of like playing as Master Chief, right? Like it's so iconic playing through the Halo game, but that didn't start like that, right? There's so many different departments in position, and concept art kind of like you start really early on. You're really starting to explore the idea visually, and you can explore it a lot faster before other people start having their hand in it, like 3D artists, modeling, animators.
Yeah, we're part of a team. Like a concept artist is part of usually some sort of pipeline, and your images. And this is one of the things that separates for me what a concept artist is versus someone who just makes cool pictures. Yeah, and we can get into also later. We'll talk about a bit about how illustration and concept art are very fundamentally different. But there is a bit of overlap, but we'll discuss the main differences. But yeah, one of the things that really helped me understand what a concept artist is that the picture in itself is not the final product. Yep. It's meant to serve another function. A lot of times, at least when I was growing up as a young kid doing art, for me the picture was the end result. It's like, here's my picture, it's done. Like this is the value. As a concept artist, and it took me a bit of time to sort of realize, hey, it's not really just about just serving me, although which is it's obviously important. It's really about serving a team and giving them the visual support that they need. Yeah.
I definitely think we could probably, I don't know about you, but there's definitely some example I think I can personally give for some of my previous titles I worked on. I don't know, maybe you can give some example of some of the titles that are out that you worked on, of like more like literal problem that we had to account for. Like one that I think of that's like, you might not think of it when you're playing the game. I worked on a game called Crash Team Racing, super fun game. And essentially it's very similar to Mario Kart, but with like characters from Crash Bandicoot, essentially. So one of the constraints they had is because you'd have these vehicles. So I was designing the kart, but you also have to design the characters. And even though it's a kart racer, the characters themselves are extremely important. So they had limits on how high the seats could be and limits on how high the back items could be to like make the back of the vehicle look really cool, because some characters were baby format and then some characters were like really big with their elbows sticking out. So you can never have closed doors. You can never had like really high headrests or anything like that. And those sound really silly, but when you're trying to make something that works for all type of characters and that any character can fit in any vehicle, that is actually a serious constraint you need to consider when you're designing these things. If not, it's just going to cause problems instead of solving them, essentially.
Yeah. And this is a key fundamental difference that highlights a concept artist's roles, is that when you think of a concept artist, let's say a long time ago when I was a kid, I was like, no, I just, I want to draw cool stuff. But in what you just said, it's like, no, it's much more of a visual problem solving issue. It's like, no, we need to make this look good, but here are these constraints. And it's that knowledge of, understanding limitations, functionality, how it will work in, let's say, a game or a film, and working with those design constraints and delivering a good visual solution in the end. So what I guess we can get into also what makes a concept, what really defines a concept artist, and makes a concept artist like a very valuable role, and which differs from, let's say, the visual design solutions of like a modeler or a lighter. Like, what makes concept art its own valuable position? So I guess I can start a bit. We do visual problem solving, and a lot of other departments do, but what makes us really unique is that there's an aspect of efficiency that a concept artist can add to a pipeline that other departments can't do as easily, or other positions can't do as easily. We can draw or paint an idea to test out or pre-visualize. I would say that would be the key word, pre-visualize. Something that the team can in the future, if they want to, invest time and energy into. And we can do that really fast. Like, let's say we want to build some sort of level in a game. Rather than trying out some stuff in modeling, and lighting and hiring like 10 guys to make like a level, you could just maybe have an art director direct a concept artist and make a bunch of very loose sketches and pre-visualize if the thing's going to work or not, because at the end of the day, we want to be efficient, you know?
Yeah.
So that is one aspect.
And that gap in time, funny enough, just because I've had some friends that worked in movies, and that gap in time becomes even bigger when you start thinking of concept art and how it relates to movies, because it's one thing to model and build something for a game and you roughly block it out and stuff like that. But, you know, then you start getting to the logistics for a movie, you're building a whole set, right? Props need to be painted. They need to be built. Like, you know, these are not just like little 1x1 rooms. These are gigantic sets. So it's like having a concept artist that can just do a bunch of ideas in a matter of a week, of how this set could look and just explore so many ideas, just saves you so much time, so much money. And then you could be like, yeah, I love the way that looks. Love the lighting in there. Let's move the position of that into that corner. And then you can really have that conversation. And then you have like at least a strong blueprint, a starting point to start building all of that, or to start modeling the environment. And you're not wasting time. Most of that stuff is going to stick and make it into the game, hopefully, if the level doesn't get scrapped.
Yeah, it's amazing how much simpler things are when a concept's there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time when the concept's not there, at least this is my experience, people are like they're like guessing what it is. Like, what is this place going to be? Like, huh? But if there's a concept, it's like, oh, we're doing that. Great. And then people can really, all the forces can mobilize, and then each department can start to really figure out how to make this thing.
Yeah.
It's very, you know, yeah. Also, concept, this is something I learned, and I was surprised that this was such a big role, because I thought we were just like really trying to make, let's say, blueprints for what the team would make in engine or in the movie or whatever. Concept artists are great for inspiration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a big role.
Yeah, it's like I remember, in one of my jobs, hearing one of the leads on another team describe what concept art was good for, and he was saying, I don't remember what his name is. I wish I could remember, but he was saying that a concept artist is really useful, not only because of the cool concepts and stuff like that. Yeah, but it's really about inspiring the team. You know, because inspiration really helps sell ideas. It's really tough to be like, hey, we should make it like this. But if you have no pictures to show, it could be hard for people to really like either understand what you're trying to say or get behind it. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any kind of experiences with that, but I found it very true.
It definitely plays a huge role. There's nothing more like, even like as a feeling, you design something and then people get really excited over it. Like that happened to me once when I designed one of the carts. Like people really liked it, and they were like, "Oh my god!" Like the motto was like, "I can't wait to model this. This looks so cool."
Yeah,
and that like feels great, and it gets them excited because now they're excited to work on this. The rest of the team might be like, "Okay, this is awesome. I'm already starting to think of ideas and materials for this. Like it looks super cool," and like it can maybe get everybody on board, or even something like a mood shot of like the feeling of the world. You know, it might not be one-to-one what the world will look like, but it gives like a mood, a feeling, an idea of what future concepts are going to look like and the finished product is going to look like. And that can really set a tone for a game and really kind of get everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like being able to create something that can get people excited on board, that's a problem in and of itself. You want to get people on the same page. You want to get people excited. And being able to do that is hard, definitely. But it can be really cool.
It is
very helpful.
Definitely.
Some studios put like as well, I've seen that some studios put a lot of their concepts, especially when they're working on a project. Currently, they'll put like concepts up. Not every studio, but they'll put concepts up on the wall and stuff like that. So you're kind of like you're walking by and you're seeing the ideas and stuff like it. And it's kind of like you're in that creative space, and that I think that's pretty cool. Yeah,
you see the vision of what this awesome thing you're hired to do is going to hopefully become like. Yeah. I remember that in my first job in-house, I was new, and for me it was like, wow, like look at all the amazing designs. Wow, I get to work with him. Oh my God. Like it really invigorated me with the drive to make the best work I could. So it all came from, weirdly enough, concept art. So it's really cool. Yeah. I guess we can talk about too, like what being on the job is like and what it involves.
Sure.
To give people that are still like, you know, like what would we be doing? Okay, we have to do all this, but like, what is an actual day like as a concept artist? Like, what are our typical responsibilities? What can they expect?
I guess the day, it's always like changes studio to studio. Is going to change if you're freelance or in-house. But like in general, you're going to be drawing a lot. Most cases, a lot. Like you might not be drawing for 8 hours straight. You have
sometimes though.
sometimes but you might have meetings. Again, very studio dependent. Some studios have more meetings than others. But you're going to be drawing a lot, and your brain's going to be pretty fried by the end if you're designing a lot, which usually as concept artists we do.
Yeah.
And so usually your day is drawing. And then potentially, I work from home, so my day is drawing, meetings, or like hitting up people on Teams. But when I was in studio, it was a lot of like drawing, and then you kind of like do a break and you'd talk to some of the other concept artists, give each other feedback, help each other out if you're stuck. And that's something fantastic about being in a studio, because you can just get that help when you're there.
Yeah.
Sometimes your art director is going to come by. That can depend.
You're not alone in a studio.
Yeah.
That's something that I was always worried about. It's like, wow, I have to like make all these really cool pictures.
Yeah.
And I'm like in an office and it's like, like that. I feel like that's a real, common perception people might have if they've never been, but it's really not like that.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's great because, as much as I love working from home, it's great to be able to sit down and 3D artists can just come up to you and be like, hey, I had a question about your concept. Like, what about this area? I'm a little bit unsure. And then either you clarify it verbally or you go, just give me like 10, 15 minutes and you do a little quick doodle. And like, there's something great about that. You're just working as a team and like, you can just kind of trust each other. Your art director is going to play a pretty big role in your day.
Yeah. Cause your art director will be the person that will first, cause when let's say you start your day, you'll have some sort of mandate or task.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whether you're on a game or a film, there'll always be someone that's responsible for giving you a task and briefing you. It's not like you just show up and you're like, oh, what do I do?
Yeah.
You'll be given instruction like, okay, we need this area to be a certain level of quality. Maybe here are the references. Here's what we've done. Here's an art Bible. Here's maybe the story. But you'll be briefed so you have enough information to hit the target.
You'll have enough information.
Okay, we can actually get into that after too. Like when, that would be like maybe blue sky when you have like so much potential. And then there's some situations where it's like, do the door, paint the door. Yeah. Give us 10 iterations of the door. You're like, God damn it.
Yeah, that could be not as fun.
Yeah. Well, some people like it, but
No, that's a good point. And kind of what I mean, like sometimes you'll be briefed accordingly. Sometimes maybe people don't have all the information. Like sometimes they will. Sometimes if you're on a game that's been, being worked on for a while, you have potentially an art Bible. You have a lot of other concepts to refer to for like the shape language and things for like factions and maps and areas.
Yeah.
But sometimes you might not have that. And sometimes even the person giving you the mandate is not 100% sure what they want. And
when would that happen? Like what is a situation that could present that?
So this happens more often earlier in pre-production, a lot more than post-production, but it could still happen in post, but it's rarer than in pre-production. Yeah. And so like sometimes they'll be given a concept and let's do something super simple, like a main character. This is the main character of the game. And then, imagine if they started off with like Master Chief and they're like, yeah, his armor is like stolen from like the elites and he's covered in like elite armor. And we all know Master Chief now it's not covered in elite armor, but that could have been the original brief. And then our concept artists start exploring that. And then maybe the producers and the art director will look at it and go like, that's not really the direction I had in mind. I don't think this is working. Let's pivot, try a different direction. What if it's a special armor made for their species of Spartan? Let's explore that. And it's like, sometimes people don't know what they want, and that's okay because that's why we're there.
Yeah, we're
like,
there
we can
to
explore
like,
that.
Yeah, we're there to fill in the gaps. You know, sometimes it's more important, and this is a big lesson I learned. Sometimes it's more important to like give options so people know what they don't want. Yeah, and we're really narrowing down the choices a lot of the time. Yeah.
It's not as clear. It's not always as easy as 1, 2, 3. This is the game that's being made. We know everything, and it's really hard to go from zero and just imagine a whole game. You know, it takes a lot of steps to get there.
Yeah, it's there are a lot of steps like making. I don't know if let's say you're working on like a big IP and you're oh my god, I have to design Batman or someone. You know, it's It's not just, hey, draw the Batman, I hope you get it right the first time. It's usually no, it's like it's a long development. You have a lot of support, and you go through many different iterations. You know, it's really, and that is a key difference between concept art and illustration.
Yeah.
Is this iterative approach?
Process, yeah.
You know,
because Illustrator, like, very simple way to put it. Let's use League of Legends as an example. It's a pretty popular game, so most people might have heard of it. But essentially, you can have the concept of a character. So let's say we take a really popular character like Teemo. You'd have the concept. What does Teemo look like? You know, these are his abilities. He's supposed to be this Yordle. He's this really small creature and he poisons people with like a blow dart. So you kind of explore what that looks like.
Yeah.
Then you have the splash art, right? You have that cool like rendered piece and like a really cool angle and crazy perspective of Teemo, and it's a beautiful lighting. And that's an illustration essentially, but the concept's already done. Like the illustrator looks at the finished concept and knows the character they're trying to set up in the scene. And also this could potentially be used as a form to sell that character, right? For people to buy it or potentially to be excited about playing this character even and kind of relating to it. Because a concept of a person just in a more static pose, not going to be as cool in a super well lit, crazy perspective, dynamic angle kind of piece that's really going to sell the personality of the character.
Yeah, for sure. It's like it's just different boxes are being checked when, you know, you're doing the Teemo concept. You might have like, this is something that was kind of, might illuminate where you'd get the information from. Like sometimes it's just, you have a narrative brief. You're like, I don't know, character needs to do this, go for it. And and that's what the beginning stages of a Teemo design might be like. It's like, okay, well, I'll just do some ideas. And then from there, it's like you might iterate and then slowly narrow down the choices until you get like down to the nuts and bolts of the design. Like, okay, we know Teemo looks like this, but now we're working on like what belt would be the nicest, you know? Okay, we'll try like 10 belts and that kind of thing. So that's more like on the concept art side, the type of boxes are being checked. And for an illustrator, it's like a lot of the times it's okay, like show me the story, the story in this piece. And make it look really, really cool. It's like, it's a lot of the time, like bringing the story to life. You have the Teemo, okay, make Teemo, like sell Teemo. Okay. And then maybe the illustrator will come up with like compositions, compositions about the story. Usually the illustrator will find unique, little stories that could be told in the picture. It'll look really cool. Like the coolness factor is a bit, it's not that it's not important in design, but illustrators are very tuned into like just aesthetic appeal. Like it really is about the picture, less about the individual design of little elements. And
if you look at it in the illustration for Ride, if you haven't looked it up, gorgeous illustrations. Like they're beautiful. The Ride splash.
Pretty good.
They're pretty juicy. Like they're very nice.
Pretty nice.
Yeah,
they're crazy.
Yeah,
they're crazy.
So,
they really like sharpen the blade on that one. Like they're so good at it.
Yeah,
what they do. It's
very good.
Obnoxious even.
So you have a lot of experience with illustration. I myself do not. So you could probably talk a lot more about illustration, maybe your experience with illustration and how that potentially touches other stuff, not just games. How does that kind of play a role?
Sure. One more thing before we get there, I think would be good for people to know is like, what skills do you need to be a concept artist? Because
so many. So many.
What would be like a simplified version? I have something I could say, but
okay,
go for it.
I guess if I were to simplify this, I'd say first, a good understanding of, you don't have to be perfect at your fundamentals. I'm not perfect at my fundamentals.
Like what are fundamentals too? Like,
just to like put that in a category, fundamentals. So we're like breaking down perspective, anatomy, like just how to draw, basics of rendering, basic lighting. That'd be like the first thing you learn. You don't have to perfect this before going on to the next step. Like I said, I haven't perfected this. I'm always getting better at perspective and rendering and all these things. But then you still need at least somewhat of a base before you start jumping into stuff like design. And that is a big can of worm. It is not a can of worm that you just open up and, oh, this is design. It's very hard. I find, because I teach design, I find it's very hard to explain. And it's very hard to learn because designs tend to be bad, and they'll be bad for a while till they become good, because there's so many different rules and things that relate to each other that you have to learn. And it's hard to just memorize them all and apply them all. And it's a very unforgiving thing to learn. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of frustration, a lot of like, oh, why does my design not look as cool? And like, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. But at one point when it starts clicking, you start like the basics, like big, medium, small, like shape, harmony start becoming second nature to you and a little bit more automatic. Then you can start applying the more niche and more complex rules of design. And then it starts to come really together as a piece. So it's like fundamentals, design's a big thing. And then if you go into specifics, like if you're an environment person, well then, you know, like perspective is going to be pretty useful. If you're in props, perspective, super useful. I mean, it's useful in everything, but like, you know, if I want to do props, anatomy is not as high on the list as perspective is for doing props, for example. So some will have a little bit higher priority than others, depending on the specialties you want to go in. Yeah. But like blanket, fundamentals, then design, and then you keep combining them both together. Maybe learn some 3D because 3D is pretty popular now.
Yeah, there's a lot of different kind of skills that can come from different, almost like they don't seem like they connect, but they do. Yeah. Like obviously you mentioned the drawing. It's important, like how to draw, what makes drawing, you know, work. But then again, there's all these other things where it's like, okay, well, if you're an environment artist or environment concept artist, it's like, oh shit, I need to know about architecture. Like, well, you know, that's so sometimes far removed from just the basic knowledge of drawing. For me, I'd say it's like, the skills you'd need is like just that basic communication skills of drawing, painting, lighting. Like these are your vocabulary of how you communicate a picture effectively. And then you have these like sort of like, I would say like knowledge of how things work in the real world. So it's like you need to learn, if you're, let's say, a character artist, like, okay, well, why do people look the way they do? Yeah. You know, like why, let's say you have to design a villain, like what makes a villain look like a villain? Like you actually have to know that. Yep. So sometimes it's not as simple, like, oh, I know how to draw. It's like, you'll be given sometimes a brief, like make this person look really bubbly. Like how the hell do you make someone look bubbly? You know what I mean? So there's like knowledge from different pieces of, you know, the real world that you'll have to study. And for every discipline, and I know we didn't cover that, but usually there is character concept artist, environment concept artist, and props. So usually like the trio. And then there's like little niche spots and overlap, generalists, all that kind of stuff. People that do all of it. But yeah, every one of those fields will have different knowledge. Yep. Yeah.
I can give an example for, well, you can give tons of examples for environments there.
Yeah, sure.
You dabble in environments, I would say a little
dabble?
Bit. Yeah, you know,
yeah,
a little
I like to
bit.
like stick a pinky toe. You know, beep, beep.
But yeah, like for props and stuff, like, you know, I always say usually that props are like a great thing to learn with, because they're actually simpler. Like props, getting into them are simpler than I find environments and characters. But where props start to get as complicated as characters and environments is when you start getting into the niches, right? Stuff like weapon design, vehicle design, spaceship design, mech design. And a lot of these are mostly hard surface based and sci-fi based. But in general, those become a lot more complicated. And you look at some of the stuff like the guns for Destiny and guns for like any game that really like the guns are a main focus of them. Yeah. Like, they're not just something that's slapped into the game. They're pretty intricately designed and they function really well, at least for the level of tech and for the world and its story. It fits and it functions in that world. And same with mechs, same with vehicles, same with spaceships. So you get those niches, and I'm sure environment has as well its own niches. It's not just environments, right? Like that's gonna be a lot different.
Yeah, of course. I mean, getting into environments, there's so many like subcategories that you can explore as an environment concept artist. You have, of course, like the real world sort of environment concept artist. You know, if you work on Last of Us or I don't know, Rainbow Six or present day sort of things, you'll have to get good at knowing how to design things that fit in that universe. So you'll have to study like, okay, well, if I'm doing a city shot, like how are city layouts? How do they work? What makes a city look like a city? What makes a city function like a city? It's like all these little things you'll start to pick up if you're on the project like that. But you can also contrast that with like, I don't know, Destiny, like you mentioned, like it's like a mix of like, you know, alien planets, like understanding how to take nature, stretch and pull it, invent things that don't exist here, but still are understandable. Like if you, let's say, invent like an alien plant, you have to know what makes a plant read as a plant.
Yes.
So these are things that as an environment artist, you sort of need to learn over time. And every, all these subgenres will teach you that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's and characters, I'm not a character person, but like characters, same thing. That has its own niches.
Yeah, we're not character artists, so it's a bit harder, but I'm sure you'd probably need to know like what makes someone look strong and skinny.
Yeah.
Not skinny, strong and weak or old. Or you'll have to figure out like posing too, like
Posing's
how you
a huge
communicate
thing. Yeah.
a story through a pose.
Yeah.
Costume design. It's like the fact that me and you aren't character concept artists means like we're really like, let's say we're like have perk ability in like, I don't know, a video game, like our costume design skills are like, because we just didn't do it.
They're way down.
Way low. Yeah.
So yeah. And like, just to kind of jump on that, just to kind of add complexity into the mix even more, like we talk about like these niches, but these niches don't exist in a vacuum, right? So I mentioned it a little bit before, like, accounting when you're designing for like potentially like factions and things like that. In some games, factions play a huge role. Even a game like very big game Borderlands, they had companies for the weapons, the weapon manufacturers. And it's like each of those weapon manufacturers have their own shape language, their own kind of shape direction. Some are more industrial, some look very sleek and advanced. And you have to consider that, because if you're designing a gun for a specific manufacturer, it's got to fit in that manufacturer's portfolio of what their guns look like. And even to go a next step, if you're designing a character that's part of a very brutalist faction, then, the architecture, the characters, the way they dress, and the weapons they use have to somehow all fit together. And that has to be consistent between all the artists. They have to find a way to make sure that all these characters, props, and environments are all fitting well within that faction. And obviously the art director plays a huge role in that direction of the art, the proper shape language and all that. So
yeah, the art director in that sense would be overseeing that there's like a visual cohesion, and that the main vision is still like upheld, even though a bunch of artists are working in their own little, space bubbles kind of thing. Yeah, definitely. So we didn't mention the different kind of situations you can get yourself into as a concept artist. There's little bubbles you can find yourself in, like you're the gun guy, I think, or the prop guy. You do a bunch of different props and mechs and vehicles and stuff like that.
So I started out doing environments. That's what I went into.
Okay.
And like always, like when I went into working, I went into environments first just because there's a lot more opportunities in environments. Reason for that is just a quick tangent. Yeah. Maps are pretty big nowadays. You know how many open worlds are coming out, and that takes a lot of art, a lot of concepts to cover that mileage of maps and how big they are, and not just the exterior, the interiors of every room. Yep. It's a lot of environments, it's not the same as characters, which there's a lot less positions and they tend to go for more senior people. Not always, but it's more of a rule of thumb there. And so, but I always wanted to go into hard surface, props, weapons, vehicles, mechs, that kind of stuff. It's the kind of stuff I like. And so lucky enough, I started with environments, and then in Beanox, I started pivoting. I got to work on Crash Team Racing, do vehicles. It was a lot of fun. And now I'm more or less, it's more my specialty. It's what I'm kind of like really, I don't really do environments anymore. So I really specialize kind of more in hard surface, props, weapons, vehicles, just as a general kind of area. I don't discriminate. I like all props. They're all cool.
You're a good guy.
Yeah. I like all props. Whether it's a little cassette player or like a really cool mech, I like them all.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Yeah. Yeah. There's so many different, what would it be like? Oh, he's kind of useful for this. She's useful for that. I've seen so many different like positions in the market. Maybe that's not a good way to see it, but like these are the things I want to problem solve for. Like I remember, for me, I kind of started out just, I want to be a general environment concept artist. Yeah. But as time went on, I do like to position myself more as like someone who does more of the key art or the mood shots.
What are those?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
What are those? What's key art? What's mood shots?
Yeah, so like the key art, mood shot, it's kind of like the final image that kind of sells the idea for a space. Usually it's like pretty cool. There's nice lighting. It's very appealing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a story beat you're trying to sell with the key art. That's kind of like the description I have up in my mind right now, but I'm pretty sure there's a better description of it.
Any examples that you can maybe give?
Yeah, sure. Let me think don't want to break any NDAs, of course.
Games that you've worked on that have released.
Yeah. So a lot of the time, I'd be doing some designs for, let's say, the Avengers.
Yeah.
And I'll be doing a lot of like, environment design. Maybe it'll be like line drawings of props or areas, trying to figure out different problem solving and, fixing, stuff in the engine or whatever. But a lot of the time I'd be able to do like, a final mood shot to really sell like, okay, this area, it's like, here's a good representation of what it should feel like, the level of detail, textures, like basically like a really high resolution image that has like a level of polish to it that a rough sketch doesn't have. So the mood shots also are good for, inspiring the team. And getting people on board with an idea.
Nice. And are there any kind of other facets of, because like I would say that like my experience with environments, at least when I started out, is definitely more in like the post-production kind of area, which is very different.
Yeah.
I guess actually good segue, single player versus multiplayer environment design, because that can potentially differ a lot from both our experiences. I worked on a multiplayer game, and in some regards, yeah. Well, I mean, I know Avengers was multiplayer to an extent, but not in the same way. So it had more of a single player kind of focus first. So I guess just from my experience, I worked on the multiplayer maps of Call of Duty, and that was something I wasn't really prepared for coming out of school, because they don't really teach stuff that specific. And there's usually like different games have different thing that's referred to as like, this is king, like this is the most important facet, and everything else is kind of after that. And for at least Call of Duty, level design was king. So level design was first and foremost more important. If I did something on a concept that affected the level design, I needed to run it by them first, because if you, again, I play Call of Duty and you don't want somebody putting something in a map that makes you upset and you're like, oh my God, I died. That was so unfair. Why did they put that piece? And it gives them a head glitch in that area, right? And people get really upset at that. And I understand it. I play Call of Duty. So level design becomes such a huge facet. So you have these very strict block out. And when I mean block out, I mean block out. They're like gray blocks, and they're like, that's the dimension of the thing, and it needs to be a block by the end of it, but make it look not like a block. Yeah. And it's like, wait, what? But it's a block. And it's like, but it can't look
really
like a block.
Off-putting when you first realize that's how things start. A lot of the times it's like, they're like, can you art this up? And you're like, what? It's just blocks. Like, what do you mean this is a parking lot? No, it's not. It's just blocks.
Yeah.
That's like really weird when you first kind of get that mandate.
Do you have a little bit more leeway though working on when you worked on like Avenger, more single player focus? Like how rigid is something like the level design in comparison?
It really depends, because if like the level design is locked, it is a constraint you have to keep in mind, and it really will test your skills as a designer. If the room is this big, well, you have to do that. You have to, you might have an idea for what it looks like, but you have to conform to it. Yeah. So in a sense, on the single player games, there's a lot of similarity. Maybe it's hard to contrast because I've never worked on a multiplayer game, but maybe there's a bit more difference because maybe there's a bit more open-endedness. Things can change pretty fast a lot of the times on a single player. Like,
Can you ever influence the level design? Like,
yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. You can sometimes, like if level design isn't being made, sometimes the concepts will support the level design. Like you'll do a concept and then a level designer will see it. And this happened to me. It's like a level designer looked at my concept and was like, oh man, that's crazy. That gives me an idea. Well, we can use this, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like my concept was and this is also really important to know, like your concepts are like a conversation magnet for other departments. They might see something that you had completely no intention of seeing. They're just like, maybe the thing in the corner of your image is like, oh yeah, that would really work for the level design thing. And then they'll like they'll run with it, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't know.
Which
you know what I mean?
That point of everybody looking at it kind of made me think of something kind of in a little bit of a tangent, but we have to be okay with people just looking at our work and being very critical and understanding that criticalness is not an insult to us. It's them going like, if somebody goes, yeah, I don't like this, it doesn't mean that they think your art is bad. It's that they think it doesn't fit with the game. Like,
yeah,
it's
it
very,
really
like,
is that
zoomed out. Like,
it's very not much. And this is also really, this is like, if I have to say something that's very wise to learn early as a concept artist, it is this, like, words of wisdom incoming. Like, your art as a concept artist is not like your art when you're painting your, personal piece, at night at 10 p.m. and you have like music. You're like, this is for me. It's like, as a concept artist, it literally is like when someone comments on your art, it's like, this is not working. It's like, I don't know, if like something doesn't work in your house, it's like, yeah, your light bulb, it's just not working. Like, because your concept is not just like, is it nice or is it not? It's, does it work with like another department? Does it work with level design? Does it work with all these other aspects that are not just about the picture being cool? Yeah. So huge lesson for sure. Like, being attached to your it's not really about you. It's about solving problems for the project.
That's a tough lesson. Even now, I still like, sometimes it's like hard. Sometimes you work on something, you shouldn't get attached to it, but you do because you enjoyed working on it. And sometimes it's just like, it's not an exact science, but in general, lesson I learned as well, like, you try to get detached from your stuff because it's not meant to hurt you. It's not targeted at you. It's very much, they're thinking about the whole picture. They're thinking about the game, and it's like, does this work for the game? Does that really fit for that character's narrative, that personality? Like, they're not saying, oh, you suck. Like, they're just saying, oh, I don't think
sometimes
that
it feels that way though.
It does feel that way, but it's not what they're thinking. So it's definitely it's a weird lesson to have to learn to be okay just having your work critiqued all the time. Like, it's a very normal thing, and you have to be really kind of comfortable with that. And I guess that's kind of fun. I guess you get used to the critiquing.
Yeah.
You get kind of accustomed to it, desensitized in a way. So
definitely. Yeah, it's. I heard a while ago. I like this sort of way of seeing it. Is that if you fall in love with your piece too much, it can hurt too much if it gets rejected.
Oh yeah.
But if you don't care about your pieces at all, then why are you doing this? You know what I mean?
Very fine line.
So there's like a in between that every artist has to like work out for themselves, I find.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't want to like obviously put my heart and soul into this picture, and like if it doesn't accept it, I'm destroyed in the inside.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do want to have some motivation. You want to be excited about what this could be. Yeah. And it's that balance that everyone has to figure out.
Enjoy the process. Don't enjoy the finished product.
Well, you're allowed to do both, I think. This is my personal opinion.
Yeah. I try to focus my enjoyment on the process and enjoying the learning aspect of it and the problem solving. That's definitely the part that I like a lot. And I find, at least for me, that's my trick to kind of separate myself from my piece, is that if I find enjoyment in the process, it's not really about the finished product. So if I have to change a big aspect of a piece, I just get excited to keep going in that process. Again, not an exact science. There are times when I get attached to the piece and that happens, and I'm like, oh, come on.
I know, really, it's like, oh my God, they're going to love this one. And then they're like, and then it's just like, no, this doesn't work. I'm like, oh man. No.
And always, this always happens like 9 out of 10 times. You do a bunch of sketches, you're like, this one's so cool. Oh, I really hate that one. I hope they don't pick that one. They're never going to pick it. It's the worst one. They always pick the one.
Yeah, it's like if you don't, this is something I try to, if I don't like one of the sketches, I try not to put it, because it's like tends to be the one that gets picked. It's
usually
weird.
Gets picked if you don't like it. It's so funny how that works
really
out.
Weird.
Yeah, and then you have to learn to love it.
Yeah.
You have to learn to love it.
That's actually a really good piece of advice too, but maybe we can cover that later.
Another time. That's a whole other can of worms. But
just want to do a recap, because we're kind of just going with the flow. We're like we're just riffing and talking about concept art in general. maybe we could talk about freelance versus in studio. We can talk about like maybe the financial side of it.
That's good. Yeah.
Because people, you know, like they're like, oh, is this worth doing? Like, am I going to make a good living? Is this a good lifestyle for me? That's something that could be.
No, I live in a cardboard box. No, don't.
Yeah,
do
my
this.
back is just like.
We are starving. You know, the trope is real. Like, you know, they feed us with like one meal a day. That's what
we get paid in exposure. Yeah.
Yeah, we get paid in exposure. That's
Yeah.
No, but it's definitely, it's, you know, I guess contrary to popular belief, it is definitely a field you can go into and you won't be starving.
You won't.
I mean, I'm not
It's
saying
not easy, but if you make it, you won't go starving.
you're not buying a house in Beverly Hills or anything,
Yeah.
but you're not starving. Like, it's definitely a field that you can go into for sure. Like, definitely.
Yeah.
So
Because like if you work for, sorry to cut you off, if you work for, let's say AAA games, or like, let's say Hollywood films, that kind of stuff, animation, like these are like billion-dollar industries.
Yeah.
So
they're huge.
if you're working for those industries, you're gonna be okay. Like you're very, I would say, like a concept artist is an expertise position. It's not like we're mopping floors or doing like very like boop 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 type of work. Is like you sometimes have to train for like, I don't know, 3 to 5 years nonstop to even get the skills that you need to start. So there's a ton of potential if you want to, you know, start concept art. It is a real career and you can do it.
Yeah. It's a good career, you know, it pays well. It completely, you know, I will say this, you know, it's definitely a love-hate relationship when you're really in the thick of the learning process as a student. I will say, like, you have to really be okay with, like, I guess, for lack of a better word, sucking for a little bit, because, you know, like, that feeling doesn't really go away. I still feel like I suck in a lot of aspects of art, you know, especially the areas I'm not as comfortable with. Like if I'm more comfortable in hard surface, I feel a lot more confident versus maybe something like characters, which I don't really do as much, and I'm not going to feel like I'm as prolific. But when we were starting out, like, it can be kind of mentally taxing to just be doing stuff, and it's like you're looking and it's like, why are people doing all this really cool shit and my stuff kind of doesn't look as cool.
It's like that for like a long time.
Yeah,
too.
it's like for a long time. And it's still like that in some days, you know. Yeah, it's not saying the feeling goes away, but yeah, it's, you have to be kind of find a way to be at peace with that. And it's okay that your stuff doesn't look amazing. It's okay that you're not Craig Mullins. I'm still not Craig Mullins, and I probably will never be Craig Mullins. That dude's amazing.
No one can be Craig Mullins.
No one can be Craig Mullins. Like, the dude's amazing. But finding a way to just be like okay with that, and understanding the old days that you're going to practice 8 hours, 10 hours, and you'll feel like you just accomplished nothing. That's okay. That's part of it. You have to make mistakes. You have to fail.
It takes a lot of work.
You're going to learn. Exactly. It's a lot of hard work. Yeah. But the payoff, if you really love to draw, you really love to design, you love to paint, whatever it is that really got you into it, there's definitely something there. If you truly have a passion for it and you want to do it as a job, it exists. It's definitely a career path for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
It really is. We don't want to go too deep in this one because I think it's a whole other podcast episode in itself. But but the pursuit of the pursuit of podcast, the pursuit, that's our pursuit right now. The pursuit of concept art is a it's a big lifestyle change.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going to go and be, I don't know, what's the job?
I don't know. I don't want to make a false comparison.
I'm trying to think of
wrong.
a job that's like not like concept art.
I don't want to do a false comparison and I don't actually know because I didn't go into it.
Like I don't want to be, let's say accountant. Like I don't, you know, like maybe the accountant is like you go, you do your schooling, and then you go home, and then you're just an accountant. Like a concept artist. That's probably a terrible.
Tentatively, because we don't know for 100%
yeah,
sure.
sorry, accountants. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We're going to be in the comments like we're starting a war.
You deserve love, accountants. But I'm just saying there are certain jobs that are very lifestyle impacting, and there are other jobs that you learn the skill, you get your job, and it's not like this thing that bleeds into your personal life. Like concept art, learning it, it's like you're going to be doing that all day for a while.
It has a lot of similarities to like a practice, like, you know, a law practice, at least, you know, because I have a friend that's in law. Laws are always being added. Like, you know, it's an ever evolving kind of like job. You always have to be up to date with like how new laws that are being added all the time. It's a field that changes all the time. Same with, I'm not comparing ourselves to doctors. What they do is way harder. They save lives, but I'm just saying
so.
medical like is always evolving, new technologies, new techniques, new like discoveries. And again, not comparing ourselves to doctors because we are not close to doctors. They save lives. But in regards
pixel doctors, fix those pixels, yeah.
But like our stuff is constantly evolving in the sense that there's always new technologies. We're always having to refine our skills, and because the quality benchmark is always being raised like year after year.
Stop raising it. I need to sleep. No, I'm joking.
But like it's always like it is. The quality benchmark is changing. What you're expected to do in a week is a lot different than what you were expected to do in a week like 15 years ago or 10 years ago even. So it's, you always have to stay up to date. There was a time where people weren't photo bashing, and we went through the thick of it.
Those are the dark ages.
Yeah, the dark ages. Just for clarification, photo bashing is when you take images off the internet and hopefully, no issues with licensing when you're taking that photo, but you cut out a little piece
Be
and
careful,
you go like,
my friends.
Yeah, it really is the dark ages. And I remember that was a big thing for the industry when that started shifting in that direction. A little bit before my time, it was already a technique when I was learning, but yeah, you cut out like a piece of an image and then you kind of paint on top of it, you adjust the lighting and you make it fit the purpose that you're trying to do, but it can save you a lot of time because an image has a lot of higher fidelity instead of just having to build that fidelity up from nothing. And I forgot where I was going with this point. I kind of just lost my thought. But in general, yeah, like so stuff is
keep up with the
techniques, the benchmark, all that kind of stuff. So it's not something you get to just finish studying, get a job.
It's like, I'm done. I made it. It's like, although there is an aspect of I made it when you get in the industry, but it really is a lifestyle, something that you kind of hold dear, and you're like, this is something that I really like to do. I'm going to continue improving as time goes on. So
you draw a lot. How much do you draw a day on average? Like rough average.
Draw a day. I mean, now it's different, but now I try to have a personal piece ongoing all the time. Yeah. And I'll spend some time on the weekend doing some sort of art outside of the work. Yeah. And every day,
sometimes you're drawing after work as well. Not every day. Yes. Some days you're chilling, but it's you're not chilling every night. Like on minimum, we hang out like on Sunday nights, we hang out on Tuesday nights, and we're drawing with other artists, and we're kind of keeping each other company. So that's already 2 days a week where we're going past our 8-hour mark of drawing. Well, I mean, technically we don't draw on Sunday, but just added time to your general 40-hour work week of drawing. And we hang out in those chats for like easily 3 hours, sometimes more. So that's, those 2 nights, another 6 hours. And any other personal stuff you're doing on your own time, you do freelance. So that also plays into account as well of stuff you need to do. I don't do freelance, but I teach. So that also plays into account. So it's not just something you're constantly trying to improve outside of work. Like, there are some people that just do it, but the norm is to constantly be working at your craft and constantly be improving and pushing the benchmark, the level, so you can get to those higher levels to have the quality of a senior and stuff like that. And you're not just at the level of a junior the whole time.
True. So, yeah. The keeping up with whatever's improving, because it's so different now than 10 years ago. Like the expectations of a concept artist, I would say, are different. There's way more tools and techniques out there, so people are naturally better.
Juniors are nuts coming into it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Like even I'm looking, like I went to Sin Studio and I'm looking at some of the batches that are like students that are coming into that diploma program, and it's like crazy some of the levels of the students that are coming out of that program, and just like people in other schools, other places of the world, like. It's nuts. The junior level like keeps going up and up and up and up, and it's kind of scary, that kind of kicks you in the ass and is like, keep working, like make sure you don't fall behind. Yeah.
There's definitely this aspect of, you don't want to be outdated bread, for a better analogy.
Stale bread.
You want to keep actively trying to. You have to have some sort of passion about it. Of course, if it's just, oh my God, I want to fall behind. that could be a bit of a weird reason to keep up. But if you're like, I love character concept art, you can learn sculpting, you can learn different styles, you can do studies, you can expand your skill set. So when you start, let's say your first few years, you'll be way more improved when you're, let's say, a senior 5-6 years later, because you are investing in yourself consistently. And I think as concept artists, it's almost like an unsaid rule. It's like, we always need to be evolving. Yeah,
I agree. But we love it, and it's part of the fun. So if you enjoy that and you want to do art, join us on the dark side and become a concept artist. So,
if you dare so do it, you can. Yes.
Whenever I have a friend that's just like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, I'm just like, well, you should become a concept artist.
Oh my God, I would never say that to anyone.
I can hook you up. I can help you out.
You should go in a cave for 3 years and practice drawing.
I don't tell them that part. I give them all the cool shit. I'm like, dude, you're going to get designing for video games and movies. It's like, imagine if you get to draw Master Chief, how cool that would be.
It does sound really cool. Yeah.
Make it sound super cool. And then once they're in that basement drawing, lock the door. What are they going to do?
Yeah,
right?
lock the door. Put a ball and chain,
Now they're stuck. Now they have to learn. So you're like, every time you do an improvement, I'll give you some food.
You get some bread. Yeah. Here, one piece of bread for each concept.
So, I cheese first, then I kind of drop the anvil.
Really good point that you mentioned.
Oh, nice.
What kind of person would this job suit?
Hermits. If you're somebody that likes to live in a shack in the forest and not socialize with other people, you are you are my people.
I think you're right, but
no, I'm not. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. Oh, you definitely have to be able to talk with other people. Don't listen to me at all.
Yeah.
What kind of people? I mean, I don't know. I guess somebody who has a want to learn. Like, I mean, you're going to be learning all the time. Like, that's inevitable. So you should be pretty passionate about constantly improving, constantly wanting to learn, and kind of having that curiosity for new techniques and new things to kind of push yourself. And also, being able to work with other people, though that's not always the most common trait, actually, with concept artists. It's something that we usually have to...
Yeah, we can get around that weirdly enough sometimes.
Yeah, but that's usually something we more or less have to learn. But if you have that kind of people skills and you're really good at talking with people, it's a really valuable skill to have. I mean, that's for any job, though. So it's a pretty universal skill to have.
Yeah, definitely. If I had to imagine someone who this could, this job, this whole concept art, even illustrator job can suit, you definitely have to be okay with just being solo a lot during your day. Yeah. It's way different than, let's say, a managerial position where you're constantly dealing with other people. Yeah. You're thinking about, let's say, numbers, Excel sheets. Oh my God.
I cannot stare at an Excel sheet. That hurts me. It hurts.
I like Excel sheets.
Yeah, I know. I have friends that love Excel sheets, and I have friends that love numbers. I have friends that are in finance, and I don't get it. But the thing is they don't get me either in the art world either. So, there's kind of a beauty to that in a way. So it's like, I guess if you love solving problems and conversing through a visual medium, because that's kind of what we do, and you're kind of down for that, like that's a pretty kind of good trait to have. Like you said, working alone. Yeah. Big one. If you like to work in the dark, you're going to be at home. A lot of concept artists like to work in the dark.
You don't have to be in the dark.
You don't have to, but I feel like that's
I feel like you have like a, maybe, I don't know, could be wrong.
I don't know. That was one of the first things they told me when I got to Beanox.
Who told you that?
Yeah, Beanox, you're like, oh, but we know where the artists are because that's where all the lights are turned out. And you literally see a portion of the studio where all the lights are out and these little leaf overhangs are on top of them to block any even more exterior light from hitting them. And it's kind of funny. And we're talking 3D artists, concept artists, yeah, they kind of, because they wanted no lights hitting their screen to affect the colors and stuff. And
I thought it was to mature us, Parmesan cheese or something. We make better images.
We leave artists in the dark so they get more moldy.
Just the brain juices flow better.
But yeah, because in general, you don't want like the sunlight hitting your screen. You don't want lights hitting your screen. It affects the color. If you like to work in line work, then well, I guess that doesn't affect you. But if you're using colors, definitely that could have an effect. But yeah, I don't know. That seems to be somewhat common. I wouldn't say everybody likes to work in the dark.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just projecting. I like to work in the dark. So
yeah. maybe
I'm just projecting.
Maybe not. Well, it's an optional thing, I think, because the studios I've been at have ranged from pretty dark and dim, and then right now, if I go in studio, it's really light. It's actually really nice. So they figured it out. So it's possible, guys. It doesn't have to be a cave.
I would burn.
You would burn?
I'd go. My skin would start sizzling. I'd be like, ah.
Oh my god. Artist garlic.
Yeah, basically like a vampire.
Yeah. I guess the last thing, or one of the things about if this is right for you, could be, I kind of call it like a creative silo. You have to be someone who really likes to be, exploring the inner kind of experience of inventing, something out of nothing. Yeah. It's very different experience than other things that you could be doing, like manual labor jobs, like I said, people, managerial jobs. You're really like by yourself, and you're kind of imagining what it could be. You're testing out ideas with your, with the paper or canvas in front of you. Sometimes there's like, dips and highs, and how well you're doing, and you're performing almost like you have what but a lot of the times what you're doing is you're kind of grasping at fog a lot of times, because what you're making isn't like, no one's done it before. It's that blank canvas sort of idea. So if you like the creative, I would say, courage and bravery of, I want to invent something new. Yeah. The concept artist is a good job for you.
I like the phrase in there, courage, because I call it creative frustration. But yeah,
okay. I think it's courage, man.
I like the courage.
Because imagine it's like, it could be anything. And then you're like, well, wow, it could be this, it could be that. It's like, there's something really cool about having that as your job. Yeah. For sure, there are, the frustrations that go with that, but that is our job a lot of times. It's like, oh shit, a brief that came in. Yeah. I've never done this before.
Yeah, and that's super exciting. Yeah. Yeah. You have to find comfort into you have to find comfort in the way you work, your tools that you have, because that will happen a lot. You get something you've never done, and the answer you give is not, I've never done this before, so I can't do it. It's fired. Okay, cool. Like you have to find a way to draw. Like I actually had an experience like that. The first time I had to do an environment in snow, I kind of sat there and I realized, I was like, I've never painted snow in my life. Oh my God, how the hell do you paint snow? What does snow look like? Oh my God, they're going to figure out on my front. What do I do? Do I tell them? Do I not tell them? I was like freaking out internally.
And you're just like looking at like 100 pictures of snow, and you're like, oh my God, snow. Like that really is what it's like. Like, you're like, they're like, paint this like a dragon. You're like, I've never painted a dragon. You're like, and then you're just like obsessed with dragons for the next 3 hours, because that's literally
lizard
your
anatomy
job.
Look like you don't even know. Like, what's the closest lizard that like has the anatomical structure of a fictional dragon, right? Like, it's like all these things. But then you learn, right? We build our visual library, and that's part of the design process. We have to do that research stage so we can understand the material and the things that we are designing. And because we don't know everything, we are not engineers, we are not all these different things, and we become more knowledgeable the more we work on something and learn about it.
Yeah, a good point to jump off on that is that what we know, I would say, or what I consider my tool set, is I have the visual knowledge to know about things that I need to know. Like I don't know about, let's say, lizards and stuff, but I have the visual tool set to dissect what makes a lizard a lizard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's really what concept artists know. It's like we're visual, like we X-ray vision visual subject matter, and then based on the design problem that we have, we can find solutions. Yeah. I need to ask, how are we doing on time?
Oh, how are we doing on time? Yeah, we're just, because it's our first time doing a long shoot, so we're double checking to make sure we don't run out of memory space.
I might need to
let me check.
Save a new thing on the SD card.
You have about 11 minutes left.
Oh, great. Okay, let's just keep going. We'll take a break. Let's actually...
Do we pause now and reset the recording?
We're going to take a break. We'll be back shortly.
We'll be back shortly to reset, and hopefully we'll have this kink fixed in one of the next few videos.
We will.
We will be back.
Hello.
We're back.
We're back.
Yeah.
So, we got a little break.
Yeah.
So
we went to
back
go do
to
art. Like we just drew for that whole break.
Yeah, we did 5 concepts on that 10-minute break.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, let's back to the conversation of like what is a concept artist. We covered a lot of things.
Yeah.
I would like to know what is the best thing about concept art to you?
Best thing?
Yeah.
That's a meaty question.
Yep.
Give me a second to really think. I know I got into concept art. Like I definitely like the challenge of it. I think that's a lot of fun. The problem solving is always been one of my favorite parts. Yeah, I think that's probably it. The problem solving, the design challenges. I think that aspect of it is a lot of fun. Like if you like puzzles, you like puzzle solving, like design kind of hits a lot of those same, I guess, like parts in the brain. And it's kind of when you get a design to work and you solve it, it's like kind of get that same kind of, it's like feeling like solving like a puzzle or an escape room, I guess.
Escaping what? What are you escaping from?
I don't know. Art. No,
design
but like,
hell.
But seriously, it's like it's I don't know. I like that process. I think that part's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The challenge of being a concept artist is it keeps you like pretty sharp. It keeps you like very attentive because you can't turn off those creative and, question asking parts of your brain when you're doing concept art. It's not like a job where you just, you're just stamping a thing a million times. It's like, this is a very active job. Things always change.
What is that job? I would actually like to know that you're just stamping something.
Stamp? I don't know. Maybe you're like
professional stamper. Is that a job?
Blank. Yeah, just something where it's like, maybe you're putting a sticker on like the same box a million times or something. Okay. Like you're not going to be like, oh, today's a new day. Like it's just going to be the sticker.
I like there's somebody out there, their job is just to put a sticker for like 8 hours. I don't think that's
it's a pretty extreme
Yeah,
comparison.
I feel like that. Like I know there's stamping involved, I think with like passports they stamp, but I feel like the job is a lot wider than just
I agree.
stamping.
I'm sorry. My analogies.
I'm just saying, like, we're going to get accountants and now people who stamp passports, like, at war with concept artists.
Yeah, I know. It's not good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So we're just like taking down every other industry, and very aggressive.
To illustrate the point, it's a very like active, mentally at least.
Yeah.
You're constantly on different ground. Yeah. So there's a challenge and it's kind of cool. It's like, it keeps you sharp. It keeps you wondering, okay, maybe I should improve this more, that kind of stuff. So you're always wondering, okay, well, I have to, where do I step it up? Like here, there, you're always growing. And that's, I think, really important just in life in general. It's just, we're always growing. And this job specifically as an artist helps you grow like in a crazy amount. The stuff you learn from concept art has an incredible effect on other artistic pursuits.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely some overlaps too with like other hobbies.
Yeah, 100%.
So I know you do a lot of photography and there's definitely overlaps with, you do
a little
photography than me at the moment, but I'm learning, I'm getting into it now, getting kind of excited about it. But we have some friends who do a lot more photography than us.
Yes.
But in general, like understanding composition is something that's a fundamental for concept art, illustration, and happens to also be a fundamental for photography. Composition is a pretty important thing in most art forms. So yeah, there's definitely some overlaps for sure. You don't start back at ground zero when you learn a new art form.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a very like core skill based practice. You have to pretty much learn the building blocks of images. Yeah. And if you work in any other image based field, you have just wealth of knowledge that's already there, and now you just have to repurpose it to the medium. Yeah. So it's really, 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 really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
let's double back because we said something at the beginning.
Well, I get to tell my favorite thing about it?
Actually, no, you don't, Sean. No? Okay, this podcast is about me. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my God.
My bad. I forgot you were there. I thought it was like a solo kind of thing going.
The Adventures of Nick.
Yeah.
with the sidekick, Sean.
Sean, the question asker.
Yeah. So Nick, how do you feel today?
I'm sorry. Seriously,
Would you like? What kind of? Anyways, I'm not going to continue that joke.
Anyways, you go. My bad.
Blueberries
my bad.
or apples? Which one do you want, Nick?
Oh, if you're offering, I would love some apples. But
Okay, I
yeah,
don't have,
please
sorry.
go. I'm so
I
sorry.
would totally give you an apple right now. But okay, so I have a chance to. No, I'm joking.
I've allowed you to speak, so please.
My God, thank you. All right. No, but for me, the best part of concept art, I do need a moment too, because I have to really, find out why I love it so much.
Do you even love it, Sean?
I don't know. Maybe I'm going to start crying right now. Do I like it?
Maybe deep down you don't, and your whole life's been like,
oh my God, don't
to this
do this.
point, and then
The internet.
and maybe you're going to
people.
become an actor.
Maybe.
Maybe like it's,
You never know, you never know. But what's
Yeah.
the best part about concept art? That is such a hard question to answer, even though I'm the one that brought it up.
yeah. Maybe you should be ready with your own
Maybe.
question, Sean.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's shame whip.
Yeah. That scene from Game of Thrones. Shame.
But yeah, I think for me, the best part about concept art is just like, it's like the joy you had when like you're a kid of being like, oh, I want to make the coolest thing ever. It's like that, whatever that is. I don't think I've ever let it die. So the fact that, we're able to, and hopefully you listening, if you're considering this as a potential position or job or lifestyle, is to like, find out whatever that artistic, like, oh my God, I want to make the coolest thing ever, or I want to build a crazy universe. It's like that rich experience for me is like what gets me going every day when I start my job. I feel very privileged to have never been fully burnt out, although I've been close to burnout.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is staying true to the reasons why I started. So the fact that I can always be inspired to make whatever this cool thing is and have the opportunity to do so and make a living, I feel like that's an amazing part of concept art. And I really love that a job like this exists because, maybe, that's a different episode. Actually, I'm not getting into that. But other fields, it might not be as easy to honor your passions financially. Like maybe as a musician, I know it's different and you can, but I think it might be harder maybe as a musician or other fields as well.
I feel like Taylor Swift would disagree with you. She's doing pretty well.
I don't disagree with that at all. No disagreements there. But I think it's different, like saying I want to make it full time as a pro musician, and I'm sure it's doable for sure. Yeah. But just the fact that I'm just saying, basically, the fact that this is possible, and I can kind of honor that really passionate drive to make cool images. That's great. I love that this exists.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's definitely kind of having that childlike kind of joy for creating something. Like, I want to create a Power Ranger, but he breathes fire and he can do backflips. So you're woo,
become a concept artist.
Yeah, I'm a concept artist. But like having that kind of joy of just like designing something really cool, really fun. And obviously, the job is not, I want to design a Power Ranger that breathes fire, but that, like you said, that same kind of joy kind of brings itself out because you have to design, like, look, if you're working on an IP that you like again, I'm going to use Halo example just because it's a pretty big name, so people will know when I talk about it. But like, insert any game you want, any movie you want that you love. But when you get to work on something like that impactful, that big, and like so exciting, somebody's like, "Hey, you're going to design this important character for this game." You're like, "Wait, what? I get to design who now for the what game?"
Yeah,
and it's like really exciting. Or you're like, "Oh, you're gonna get to design the boss room for this boss," and you're like, "Oh, that's cool. This is gonna be fun."
Yeah,
like,
it's more than a job at that point.
Yeah,
it's like it activates, like, I don't know, like what would it be called for you? Me, it's like the awesome, oh my God moment.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you know
like
what you mean, yeah.
There's something really exciting about that, and like that's, yeah, like you said, we're really privileged. We're really lucky that we get to work in a field that we both love. Like, I'm not saying every day is going to be the happiest day and we go into work with like 150% energy every day, but like in general, we love our job and we're lucky to do something that we love. So yeah, I think you're right. That's really awesome. We get that kind of
100%.
energy. But
Yeah.
I want to go back to the beginning a bit.
Back to the beginning.
Because we really like explore what concept art is. But, what are the other art forms, just so we can give a brief overview of different types of art form? Because there's concept art, there's illustration, there's graphic design,
Yes.
storyboard artists, and just kind of laying down a clear picture, because at least I think we've both experienced this, and this is a lot of concept artists I think have experienced this when we tell our family for the first time, or people that maybe don't know what concept art is. We're like, we do concept art, and then the first thing you hear is, oh, so it's like graphic design? And it's like, no, graphic design is actually pretty different. And again, graphic designers are amazing. It is very hard to do graphic design. It again requires a lot of its own skill set. So the job is very, very different from a concept artist. So like, what are these different things? Like what is a little bit more, what's illustration, what's graphic design, what are these other things? I guess at a blanket level.
Yeah, we'll do like a recap, like just in case, just for more clarification, basically. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the situation where like family or friends, they're like, oh, what do you do? And then you're just like, oh, not this again, kind of thing. Because we're so misunderstood. Like no one knows what we do. Yeah. It's funny that you brought that up. In essence, like for me, I try to, if I would to describe the contrast between a concept artist, an illustrator, and graphic designers, everyone else, is that like an illustrator is really about like, I picture like book covers, posters, card art, splash art. It's really about that end picture being like the end in itself. That's really what the value is. Yeah. And a concept artist is kind of like, okay, well, pre-visualization of different parts of a movie or a game. It's working with other departments. It's visual problem solving and like engines, helping level designer. There's so many different variants of a concept artist, but the image is not like this thing that is the value in itself. It's not like the cool picture that's on the book cover. Yeah. That is illustration. Yeah. Concept art is like the million iterations that it took for, let's say, I don't know, the X-Wing in Star Wars to be finally designed. It's like someone had to figure it out. Like, okay, well, this doesn't work. We can't build this. Concept artists, we need different iterations. Yeah. So it'd be like this, more of that kind of approach. Yeah. And all the other ones, like graphic designer, I know there's other ones.
Storyboard artists. Yeah.
Storyboard artists. And please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Like, I've never been to storyboard artists. I'm just going to try to guess what you guys do.
Rough over, like, from what we've known, either from teachers or from colleagues that have done it. We're going to try and be general, but again, like, just like we talked about our industry and how niche and how many different facets, that tree of all these niche stuff and facets, that tree exists for illustration, that tree exists for graphic design, that tree exists for storyboard artists. And so we don't do those fields, so we don't really understand the tree as well as somebody who would do it. So we're going to talk just super general, top level, what a graphic designer is, what a storyboard artist is, but it's a lot more than just that. Like, keep that in mind, just like concept.
Yeah, we're just big overview, like generalization, just but as long as the difference is clear, I think that's important. But yeah, like storyboard artists, it is about like those quicker sketches that can give basically like bring a keyframe to life or a story beat to life, so that it could be further developed. It's like it's like the first wave of storytelling visually, pretty much. You can see the shots one by one, see if they work. You can adjust camera angles really easy because it's very quick drawing skills and just cinematography kind of skills, storytelling skills. That would be my general description of it.
And usually storyboard is kind of associated with movies, but storyboard artists are there for games. Like, you can actually look up online. I forget the artist's name. If I remember it, I'll post it in the description. We'll put it there. But it's an artist that did actually storyboards for Dishonored, so that played a role. Storyboards are done, if I'm pretty sure, for the intro trailers of new characters for Apex Legend. Like, all these things usually have storyboards to them to kind of get an idea of what that cinematic's going to look like. It's not just in movies. I'm sure even in advertising probably has, and commercials have storyboard artists that work on them. So, it touches a lot of different facets. And for graphic design, that's definitely also very problem solving heavy, again, surface level here. I'm not a graphic designer. To be able to like figure out what somebody's brand is and try and be able to create that brand package that encompasses that company, that person, that whatever it is they're selling or whatever it is. It's not an easy feat to capture and simplify that information to an iconic logo. Like you think of, and not just logo graphic design, we're talking about labels, like brochures, like so many things, graphic design effects, like it's so wide. But just as an example, I'll use the logo. Like you think of some of the most iconic logos in the world, and you look at them, they're like so simple, but it is hard to come up with something so iconic and so simple at the same time. That is no easy feat to achieve. So it's, like that's a very hard, very hard job, and a lot of problem solving as well in that job. So, there is a little bit of things that carry over that kind of problem solving brain, but again, different job, very different from concept art in a lot of ways, very different from illustration. Just the storyboard is, and they all kind of have a lot of uniqueness to them. So finding out what you also like to do, what kind of artist you want to be, know that there's a lot of positions out there. A lot of them come from the same level of foundation of fundamentals. You need to know how to draw to a certain extent, but there's so many different kinds of art fields out there that you make a living off of. You can do as a career, as a job, and find out what you like. It's not just concept art.
Yeah, there's so many different facets of art, and I know you're listening to our podcast, which is about concept art, but at the same time, be open to different positions or different workflows. If I was starting again and I didn't know what I wanted to do, I would definitely try a bunch of these different things, because
tattoo artists even.
Yeah, tattoo artists even. And there's a lot of amazing tattoo artists that are having, that's also a great field that can involve art. And there's also like a ton of overlap.
There are some concept artists that are tattoo artists actually that do both.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. And like, they're really cool ideas and designs. Like they come up with really cool ideas and designs for their concept, and that maybe puts them apart because they bring a little bit of their concept art knowledge into that. So it's, there's definitely skill overlap for sure. But so many different art fields you can go into. There's tons. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. All right, brother. I'm kind of gassing out, but, how about we do the
entertainment section?
The visual portion of the podcast.
Okay, so just for clarification, we're gonna see how it works. So we're gonna be beta testing this to a degree for our first few iterations of these episodes, but we're gonna have a segment at the end. So if people are listening it through, let's say Spotify, listening to just they can stay and keep listening, but we're going to have somewhat of a visual element on screen. Today, we're going to be talking about we each kind of brought an artist we wanted to talk about that we love their work. But it's going to be a mixture of that. We might talk about a show that we love watching, Shogun, or we might talk about a game that we both played that we loved or one of us really enjoyed, and maybe we're going to talk about the visual direction of that. Today is going to be about artists, but just something kind of light, kind of fun, and kind of our concept artists kind of look onto that stuff.
Exactly.
And why we liked it so much. So
exactly. Like we're always digesting and consuming art, and today we'll share with what we're what artists we're really appreciating right now.
Cool.
So let's pull them up.
Who do you want to go with first?
I don't know. How do you want to decide, Nick?
I don't know. I'm cool. Do you want to go with my stuff first? Or your
I was thinking
first?
Maybe wrestling, but
so we're gonna be like looking up and down at our screen. We're gonna be testing a different format of where we put the image. Sean wants to put a full screen. I'm kind of the mindset we float it in between us, like a little floating screen. We're going to test it in post, see
whichever
what works
one it
better.
is right now is the one we chose.
Yeah, whichever one it is. Yeah, we're talking, but whichever one it is, we won't know till we test it out in post. So we're going to test that out, and one of us will have won. Okay. I don't know why I'm making this a competition.
I feel so
I'm
villainized. How dare you?
Sean's wrong. Anyway, but I guess let's start.
Because you're on the top of the list.
Yeah, sure. Let's start
N is before S, so
let's start with me. So,
you start.
I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong, but I'm a huge fan of your work. The artist is Sheng Lam.
Ooh.
A fantastic designer. He's one of the designers I like to look at the most. He's one of the designers I always point my students towards. He's just so good. He's really, really good at making functional designs, cool shapes. His line work is gorgeous. Yeah. So really like a designer through and through, and a good example of what concept art is. Yes. If you go on his portfolio, a lot of sketches, a lot of iteration, and you're going to get to really see a bit of that concept art pipeline. The first example that I have, there's like 2 robot heads from the movie Creator. So he worked on that, as well as other stuff like Star Citizen, if you've ever heard of that game. Nope. Only one of them.
When was that started? Last year? No, I'm just joking.
But so I'd say we go with the first one with the heads. I think great image. I'm just going to speak off the dome, I guess. But the shapes are super cool. When we talk about shape, stuff like shape harmony, you look at, let's say, the example on the right. There's a lot of this kind of like rectangle into a rounded side. So there's like a flat side and a rounded side. When we talk about shape harmony, is that shape is like being repeated all the time. It's being reused, whether it's in the frame, whether it's in those little pieces sticking out of the bottom, the whole body of the head. And that's kind of like one of those rules of design we talk about, and he's really good at it. He uses, his designs are very believable, they're very functional, and they use the design rules extremely well. I don't know what you think there, but
he's good.
He's good.
I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful line work. I love I'm more of an illustrator, so I'll just say it. The illustrative presentation of the designs is very, very pleasing. I really love looking at them. There is a very, I would say there's a nice playful balance of like, very out there shapes and playing with, real world design motifs. Like I can see inspiration from, spacecraft and different things you'd see in, aerospace and machinery. And I can see how like, these playful kind of, I see on the second image, you see it right here. Like I can even see like a crab, kind of like a crab head. Yeah,
with those rounded shapes and stuff. Yeah, definitely.
And it's like this artist is just really good at just having like very unique shapes, but like bringing them to a credible, what would be the word? Like it feels tangible, believable.
Like even though like, it might not be if we were to really build this, but like visually, like in the game, that's one of the biggest things you have to make it feel. It has to feel visually believable. And so it's a design that still feels out there. Like it's like nothing of our world, yet it still feels super functional, super believable. And that's a very hard thing to achieve. And he does it very well. The stuff is like super cool. The second one with the mech, like super interesting. That kind of like thing with all the wires inside, like really cool shapes, really interesting kind of functionality to it.
Yes.
That's not something we have always. Like you see it in server rooms where there's like lots of wiring, but it's not something we see as much. Our culture tries to hide a lot the wires. It's about making it as like sleek and as least amount of wires. So to see a direction that's just so different and it's like wire heavy and it looks so cool. It's really different than the kind of stuff we have. And it looks sick.
Why are we doing it that way?
I'm gonna hit you.
Sorry.
I'm gonna hit you.
I'm sorry. I might do this more in future episodes.
His puns are the worst. But yeah, shapes are sick. The vehicles as well, super cool. It definitely has like all these kind of cool like markings on the side of like these trees and stuff, and having those rest areas. But again, very functional design. He's a really, really good designer and somebody that I look at all the time. So, we're putting these images full screen or up there, and keep doing that. Like really, really good designer, and a good example of like what concept art is, the kind of stuff you'll be doing.
Great example. You can see it you can see the full package of what fundamentals and understanding the real world can result in. And obviously there's that illustrative touch too. It's like every artist will have the way they like to show their ideas. And so you can see that this artist really likes that line work, not too much like realistic rendering, but there is still realistic, a sense of lighting too. Like, so this artist just picked what he or she likes.
Little highlights just to show some reflective materials. And it didn't need more than that. It sells the design super well.
Yeah. Awesome.
Let's go
super
into
good.
Your stuff.
So Sheng Lam, right?
Sheng Lam,
Sheng Lam, you're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Let's go into the stuff you brought.
Yeah.
So who did you pick? Oh, I'm already starting to. I think I know who you think. I know?
Yeah. We both know this person.
Yeah, we both know this person.
I'm a bit of a fanboy.
Yes.
He's for sure listening right now.
He loves. Let me guess. Does he like compliments?
Yes. He might. You can say that he's controlled by compliments. Yeah.
So this is our friend Edward with a W.
Yeah, Edward Delandre, the genius himself. But in all seriousness, he's a good friend of ours.
Yep.
And yeah, I met him on a project. Funny enough, and Edward has been a huge influence on me and how I want to grow as an artist. At first, when I saw his art, I was like, But over time, I was just like, damn, like I started to really notice like how amazing I liked his shape design.
Shapes are very good.
And the playfulness he has with, taking something, let's say if we go to the third image, this is, what's his name? Man, I'm gonna get it wrong. This is the guy from Berserk. What's his name?
I haven't read Berserk yet.
Yeah, my God, it's blanking. I should know this. But just like taking like,
Guts.
No,
No?
the third image.
The creature.
The animal.
Okay, yeah, I haven't read
like
Berserk, so I wouldn't know that. I know I have just said a cardinal sin. I haven't read Berserk, but anyway.
It's okay. I'm not even done either. But pretty much like taking, a familiar sense of animal anatomy and just, he has such a playful way of stretching and pulling shapes and making really interesting arrangements of shapes and proportions with like things we're familiar with. I just really love how it all comes together.
Yeah.
Plus, the dude Edward, the dude understands lighting at a really, really crisp level.
Yep.
The rendering style is super, super beautiful because it reminds me of like, it's like the virtuoso playing, damn it, he's going to take that compliment and it's going to get to his head, but Edward. It's like the virtuoso like elegantly, doing the solo, but like very clean, like super effortlessly. Like the brushwork is so effortless. It's very elegant. And I love that type of stuff. So
he also doesn't over push the piece. He doesn't over render. Like he loves to have like those areas where you see underneath the canvas kind of showing like that kind of like, I forget what that's called. The underpaint, is that the term that's used? Okay, so underpaint, just for clarification, this is a traditional technique first, I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, you know more about this than I do, but essentially they put like usually a warm tone over the canvas that has some sort of color variety, but like an orangey mix, some yellows, some reds. And then you paint on top, you start painting your shapes, your whatever your illustration is, and parts of that very like warm color is going to peek through when you're doing your paint strokes and your brush strokes, especially because the paints are going to mix. The brush is not going to evenly put your paint down. It's going to have little areas where it peeks through, and it gives a lot of rich character. It's a lot harder to recreate digitally. Like, I know he does do it digitally, and I know a lot of artists do it digitally, but something amazing doing it traditionally that you just can't recreate as well digitally.
Exactly.
So that kind of stuff is great, and he loves to leave some of that stuff in there, and it gives so much personality to the piece. Again, like you said, the shapes, fantastic, really good shapes.
Shape God. He's gonna. Oh man. Anyways, this will be like 2 months worth of ego boost.
In Edward's word, I am, aren't I? Is what I would hear him saying right now if he heard all this, which he will. But
we're just joking, by the way. He's very modest. He's an amazing guy.
We love Edward.
Yeah.
But yeah, like his the piece with guts, like again, amazing, like so sick. The composition is beautiful for it. The contrast of like the noisiness of the blood versus the kind of thicker area of all like the body parts, or I know it's getting kind of gruesome, but the eyeballs and all these stuff at the bottom like contrast really nicely. Like again, shapes, amazing. Like
the shapes, man.
I'm running out of things to say. It's got
really
the butter,
good.
The butter.
The butter.
Can you explain what butter is?
It's really, I think that's like its own episode, but in
super roughly, so people know we're saying butter. We're talking about juice before, now we're saying butter.
I know the juice is like, I think the juice can be butter, but the butter is very like individual.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
What's the butter?
It's like that, when you look at like the way it's painted, it just feels buttery. Like if I look at, the cape on Guts or the let's say the certain areas of the bloody torsos and stuff, it just feels buttery. It feels like, yes, it is, let's say, a torso with, you know, specular highlights that are like wet and all that stuff, but like it feels butterily done. Like there's an aspect of butter that I think that the oil paint strokes mixed with really good lighting and really good color harmony or color variation. It just has this buttery feeling that it just appetizes the eyeballs.
I think there's only two places you'll ever hear those two things together, body parts and butter, and that's going to be when Sean's talking, or if you're watching Hannibal Lecter. So those are the only two places where I think butter and body parts are ever going to mix.
We'll add a tag Hannibal Lecter in the podcast. So
that was a
Hannibal
really
Lecter
bad joke. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
but on honesty, and also fun fact, I'm really happy that I own the guts piece. I'm super happy.
So we're just showing off now.
Yeah, no, but I'm really happy. I'm really happy that I have this piece. I asked Edward to paint me one randomly. I was just like, hey man, I want one of your arts. Yeah. I want one of your arts, man. And I wanted to have some sort of Dark Knight or something like that. And at the time, I was really into Berserk. So yeah, I'm super happy to actually have this on my wall. So I'm a huge fan. I love Edward. He's so great.
Stuff's
Praise
amazing.
him.
You know, lucky that we know him personally, so we can also attest. Like, he's a great guy, great personality, but like, you know, comes second to how great his art is. Sorry, Edward.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So even the Venom piece, like the Venom is so cool. The tongue going around, the shapes for it, the pose, the lighting, the shadow shapes, the light shapes, like everything about it, super cool. Again, these pictures are up here or in front of both of us, but you'll be seeing them.
Stop telling them, they know.
I will win.
Oh my God. Yeah, the shapes are great. I'm trying to get better at shapes, so I'm like on a shape journey right now, but he's like #1 guy. If you want to get better at shapes and stuff, definitely look at Edward. He's great.
Yeah, very good at shapes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So for next episode, we might be looking at more artists, or we might, you know, try some different stuff out. We might be looking at a Shogun, or maybe a game. So we'll see what we end up talking about.
Yeah, sounds good.
No show in particular or game, you know, but, you know, maybe.
But we'll dedicate a part of the podcast to, just talking about something visual, something cool.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's something that, you know, we're both passionate, you know, so yeah. So that's pretty much it. This is our first full episode of the Juice Brush podcast.
Juicy Brush.
Juicy Brush pod. That's what I said.
Said juice.
No, I did not. I said juicy.
We'll find out
you
later.
Just cut me off before you could hear it. I said Juice Brush.
I don't know about that, Nick.
And I just kind of put it out of order. Anyways, you know, you can check it in the recording.
I will.
Yeah, I know you.
We will find this out.
But yeah, like, you know, the first episode of the Juicy Brush podcast. And yeah, we're really excited to do, because, you know, we were really excited to film the first one. It kind of sucked that we got delayed for so long, but really happy that we did it. Really excited for episode 2. And yeah, hopefully you all enjoy it. And again, if there's any feedback, things that you want to see more of, things maybe you're like, man, you know, you both suck, change the host, you know, we can try and do that.
Yeah, I'll just yeet myself out the window.
But yeah, if you have any feedback, please leave it in the comments below. And maybe, you know, if you are interested in concept art, or maybe you like a specific artist, you could let us know what artist you like in the comments below.
Yeah, tell us what's awesome. Like, tell us what you want to know. Tell us what's awesome.
Yeah.
Feel free.
And tell us your favorite artist.
We will read the comments.
Yeah.
We will.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's episode 1. So I guess we just cut it right here.
Big thank you. Thank you, guys. And if you made it this far, from me, thank you.
Yeah.
From Nick,
it
means a lot.
I'm not saying
We're tuning
it again.
out.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.